Powered by Reb Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. The new invitation series is delightful. It's the Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old high-proof, full-bodied whiskey with several aromas. You've got caramel in there, Ray. We've got toffee, spicy vanilla, the rich oak, the butterscotch finish. It is so smooth, and it's on the shelf in October. Now, you warned us during our last episode of the week that you were going to have, specifically Tuesday, where, man, you did the doubleheader. Like, there was stuff going on left, right, and center, right? So your colleagues at ESPN Production put out an animation at one point. Where in the world is Ray Ferraro? Which was pretty creative. Take us through everything that you did and didn't do.
Well, I didn't really know a whole lot other than I was prepping for 2 games. And so I had Seattle and St. Louis and Chicago and Utah. And to start with, I've also got Vancouver and Philadelphia and Vancouver and Calgary this week. So as I started prepping, I had the games in the wrong order. And I was prepping, like, I had part of a Seattle sheet done, and then I started doing something to do with Calgary, and then I had Vancouver, and it was a mess for a little bit. But I kind of got my stuff together, and so I got.
Was there an aha moment, or how did you? What happened?
So I do everything in colors, right? So I try to have the colors with the team, so when I look at the sheet, I can look at it quickly, and I realized I'm not doing these teams. This is not the game. It's St. Louis and Seattle. And so I got my stuff together. I get to Seattle late on Monday night. I do a bunch of prep. And so Tuesday, we just, Mike Monaco and I we meet up. He's doing the play-by-play. By the way, that guy's going to be a star. He's 31 years old. He is solid. He's going to be, well, he already is fantastic, but he's going to be a star. And so we go to the rink and I meet the videographer, Jason. He's like, yeah, I'm going to be with you today. And so, like, kind of everything I'm doing, they're videoing, which is always really a little uncomfortable. I'm like, is the mic on? Is the mic off? You kind of, like we're all, like we were just talking before here, like you want to make sure that what you're saying, whether it's being recorded, right? So including, like with the driver, does this guy know where the F he's going? Like, you want to make sure that it's not being recorded. So anyway, so we get to the rink, we go through all the prep. It's a big day in Seattle, right? It's Dan Bilesma's home opener. Jessica Campbell's going to be the first woman on a bench in the NHL. And we've had her on the show, by the way, as I digress. She's so impressive. She really is impressive. We get through the game and then it's like, it's time to go. So I race off the bench and Brandon Tanev's like, yeah, you got to go. You go ahead. So, like, he knew where I was going. I don't know how he knew. I didn't tell anybody. And so off I went and I raced down the hallway and we get into the car. The car gets to the airport. We get on this plane, which I've flown private on a golf trip once. And so I've not done it much, right? But you go out there, you drive right to the plane. The 2 pilots are standing there. That's me and the videographer. There's some food. There's a candy drawer, which I was very, very happy with. And like, it's 2 hours. They're like, we can do it in 1 hour and 48 minutes. And like, we're down to the minute, right? Like, whether this thing's going to work. Yeah. And when you land in Salt Lake, you can see the Delta Center on the left. Yeah. But you can't drive that way, right? You got to go all the way around the airport. And I got into the rink at 8:03 and the game started at 8:15. I got onto the benches at like 8:08 and I'm shuffling notes around and making sure I got things. And then Bob Wischusen and AJ Malesko, I say hi to them on the monitor and we start. And then the game's over. In warm-up, start of the game, Alex Kerfoot's skating to the bench and he kind of stops and he goes, weren't you just in Seattle? And I go, yeah, I go crazy, right? And Pat Maroon on the other side looked over and just started laughing at me standing there like, and so it was really, you know what, Dregs? It was so cool. It was so fun. And I
Yeah.
didn't get lost. I got both games in. Only a couple times I was talking where I was like, making sure I had the right teams and the right
Yeah.
players. Because you start mixing guys up a little bit. And then got to the hotel at midnight, up at 4, flew back to Vancouver and did the Canucks and
Jeez.
Calgary last night. That, I got to tell you, late in the third period, I'm like, oh boy, I'm starting to get tired. Like,
Running out of gas. Yeah.
oh man, the tank was empty. And anyway, so I got through it, and it was super fun. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
So no wrong turns, no nothing that elevated
They did,
your.
no, you know what they did was great. They gave me no opportunity for a wrong turn. Like I had the videographer knew exactly where we were going in Seattle, so walked literally right into the truck.
Yeah.
And went to the airport. I got out. It was like 6 steps from the truck to the plane. And then from the plane to the truck in Salt Lake was 4 steps. Like, it was even closer. And then we dropped off right at the back door at the building in Utah. It was, even I couldn't screw that up. It was, it was awesome. It was so great.
All right. Well, we're going to get to that Calgary-Vancouver game from last night, because it was one of the wild ones, right? And it was a wild night Wednesday night in the NHL regular season. So it's time for your headlines, brought to you by Tim Hortons, celebrating 10 years of NHL hockey cards. You can find a specialty prize card for a chance to receive an autographed Sidney Crosby card, or special cards that feature a piece of real Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Cole Caulfield, or Connor Hellebuyck's jersey. Stop in to your local Tim's today. So again, some unpredictable outcomes, I would say, Wednesday night, with all 3 Canadian matchups deeply involved. Winnipeg, Ray, you were doing the Calgary-Vancouver game, so not sure how much of this you saw, but Winnipeg looked terrific, obviously, in a 6-0 romp over the Oilers. Connor Hellebuyck has been dealing with some family issues. Stellar, as always, made 30 saves. The Jets' third line, if you can call it that, with Niederreiter, Lowry, and Mason Appleton, dominant. And when you look at the event summary, the game sheet, their minutes aren't typical of a third line. But
right. Yeah.
It's just Scotty Arniel has the luxury of matching up and putting them out against every line in the league. Kyle Connor set an NHL record, which I didn't know until I read this morning, by scoring in his 7th straight season opener.
Right.
NHL record for Connor. So let's flip it now. One game, everything went Winnipeg's way, well earned from the crease out. But is that all it is? Is that all it is? Or how can you explain Edmonton's no-show on home ice?
Okay, so we're going to go through, just because I'm going to make one little tie-in here. We're going to go through Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, right?
Yeah.
And Boston, Florida, I'm going to throw in there because they were the night before, and Boston got run over. That score was not what the game was.
No.
So out of those 4 games, the only team that lost that can look at themselves this morning and say, we're totally fine, is Toronto. Just given that one game. Like, just
agreed.
Toronto had 48 shots on goal. Sam Montembeault.
47 something, yeah.
Yeah, amazing night in goal for Montreal. And really, I want to touch this really quick. Really cool that Cole Caulfield scores the first goal for Montreal, wearing number 13 on a night where Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew are being remembered around the National Hockey League. There's just a synergy sometimes that should be, and that was really amazing to see. But Edmonton, what are the question about the Oilers? Their defense. Yeah. That defense is not top-end caliber. If they think they're going to be a top-end team, that defense isn't going to get it done. They got run over. They gave up chances right in front of the net. They gave up pass seams through. Stuart Skinner was not very good in goal either. So the concerns of the Oilers would be that, and those concerns came to light. So just remember that little theme when we get to the next couple of games. But
Sure.
I think there is zero chance, like zero, that this Oiler defense looks like this at the new year.
Right.
They've got to accumulate. Well, they can't accumulate because they're an LTI, but they're not an LTI.
No.
No, they're not. So they can
No.
accumulate cap space. So they're going to need a little more room to acquire a player that they'll do everything they can to acquire a player, but that defense is not going to get it done. So the concerns are, Darnell Nurse was in the picture a few times last night in the movies, and I had every coach tell me, and every player will say, if you're in the movie, which is the video the next day, it's not a good thing, right? So you don't want to be an Oscar winner in the video the next day. But at the same time, the Oilers are the oldest team in the league. They got marketably slower over the summer, noticeably slower. So they've got to work through some things. And they should say and will say, we lost last year 8-1 on the opening night.
Yeah.
Right? And so they got their lunch handed to them at home.
Yeah.
And they lost 8-1, I think 4-1 to Vancouver, both games. And, and that precipitated some pretty big changes, pretty short order in Edmonton. And so it's one game, you can't panic, but the real flashing red light is the concern of the defense. Hi, Ollie. The concern of the defense is real, and it was there.
Yeah. And look, that's the negative side of things. And you have to balance the positive too, right? I mean, Winnipeg, everything that Winnipeg did.
I thought you were going to say the positive in Edmonton. I was like, what? They didn't give up 7? I mean, that's the positive.
No, but look, I mean, the Jets are a good team. We know this. Are they going to be that complete ever? Of course not. They're not.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing, I think, when we go through all these games, it's one night, and every team that won should be really excited about something, and every team that lost should be slightly concerned about something. But there's 81 nights to go, and you're not even going to remember a lot of this first night in most cases. The other theme through this, October hockey is shinny. It is
normally it is, yeah.
And
shinny, you said.
Yes.
INNY. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it could have been crappy.
Oh.
You said shinny. That's what
shinny.
You meant.
Is that not what we called it growing up? It's road hockey. How's that, Darren?
No.
Is that better?
I thought.
Oh no, and you know what? It is shitty too. But I loved October hockey because there's lots of goals and nobody's sharp. But that was a concerning. That was the concerning point of that game, is the Oiler defense. And to Winnipeg, they had an awesome night.
So I'm flipping around, obviously. You've got that Calgary-Vancouver game, which you did. And I thought, okay, 4-1 going into the second period here for the Vancouver Canucks. I don't know how much of this I'm going to watch. And I was captivated by how bad it was going to get in Edmonton. So that kind of dragged me. And then I flip over and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So Calgary storms back, and I'm thinking, this is from a TV and just a twisted mindset. I'm thinking, as I see the bench shot of Rick Tocchet, I'd like to create thought bubbles over his head as Calgary just flipped that switch. So again, just to your point, further evidence, right? Further evidence of how unpredictable it is.
It is. So that game got wild early. There's a play where the puck got passed up to Kevin Rooney, and he missed it. And when he missed it, it went right to Miller, and Miller thinks that Rooney's going to have the puck, but it goes right through him, right to Miller, who pushes it right back down the boards and then reverse hits him. It was such an odd, awkward play. And Rooney was kind of on his outside foot, which is not a good place to be because you have no balance. But it was such an awkward pass, and he just got catapulted into the boards, and it looked bad. And Fortunately, he's good. He's just really jammed up, like injured, like I'm sure his neck is sore and his back is sore. And, they'll announce whether was in concussion protocol, but I would suspect he was. But he was up and around, which is great news. But Vancouver, the game is never that easy, right? It was 4-1. It's easy, but it's never that easy. Right. So I think both coaches probably said to their teams after the first period, we need to have some composure here. We got to like dial this madness back, because guys were asking guys were like, you want to fight? You want to go? It's like the first game of the year. It was like the kids got let out at recess. And guys that are not going to fight or challenging each other to fight, you're like, they're not going to fight. No. And Anthony Mantha, though, he stood up on the bench. He was right beside me, and he's yelling over at Miller. He's like, you got to fight. Like, we're going to fight you got to fight for that hit. Yeah. You got to make it right. And Miller's like, all right. Like, I just got off the ice. I'm not going to fight you right now, but yes, we will. Like that's how it used to always get settled. Yeah. And when they did fight, it was a good fight. Two really big, strong guys. The game just flattened out. That tension of that play flattened out. But Vancouver was a half a step slow. They tried to play easy. They tried to play a light game. Artur Shilov's, which would be the Canucks' concern without Demko, one of their concerns is how are they going to stand up in goal? Yeah. He got beat on 3 long shots. The Oilers exposed him on that last year in the playoffs, and he got beat 3 times from distance. Yeah. Anderson scored a really nice goal. Weegar scored a power play goal, and Martin Pospisil scored as well. And so just like the Oilers, the concern is on their D, and that came up. The Canucks' concern is in goal, and that came up. The other thing in Vancouver, I don't know the exact numbers with other teams, but Vancouver had 7 new skaters in the lineup last night from their team last year. Yeah. And so as much as they want to say there's continuity, there's really not. And I can guarantee you, when they go to practice today, it will be about detail and structure and defensive system. They ran all over the place, and I think I think we might see this from Calgary this year. They don't have a lot of pressure on them, and they're just going to play. And there's going to be some nights that it doesn't go very well. There's going to be some nights where they're going to score 5 goals. Connor Zary, really gorgeous overtime goal. Beautiful. Really good. 16 goals last year, I think, or 14 when he got called up, and he scored the beauty last night. He's fun to watch. And one other guy I will point out, I mentioned him earlier, was Mantha. So he had a Gordie Howe hat trick, as did JT Miller, in both of them in the game last night. I guess because they fought each other, that's a good start. But if Mantha can stay engaged, which has really been a knock in his career, if he stays engaged, you got a 6'5" forward with really good hands. And I ran into Craig Conroy after, and Connie's always awesome to talk to. Anyway, he's always at 11 on the energy level, but you can imagine he was bouncing last night. That was a good win for them, and Vancouver goes into that pile of teams that we're going to work on that was like, not very good last night.
Busy week throughout the NHL with the regular seasons just getting nicely going, kicking into gear. Steven Stamkos of the Nashville Predators joining us today on the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast. But we should remind everybody, Ray, we did the interview on Monday night. Now, there's a lot going on. He talks about, his time in Tampa Bay and Florida and all that. And we know what's going on in Florida right now. So good to... Yeah, it's terrible. It was good to catch up with Stamkos. Just such an honest and nice man, right? So we've got that coming up. Do you want one more quick thought on the Leafs-Montreal game? You mentioned the Caulfield goal. Toronto, to your point, did a lot of 5-on-5, they were the better team. They were 0 for 4 on the power play. Sam Montembeault was really, really good.
Had really good goalposts too.
He got helped a few times.
Yep.
Yeah. But goaltending was a theme going into that. And you can imagine how Jeff O'Neill and the Overdrive boys handled the news that Joe Woll was not going to be available for the game in Montreal on IR because of a lower body issue. So, I mean, we'll see how things fare as we record this on Thursday.
I'm just going to say this about Woll, though. About Woll. And nobody wants to be hurt. And when you are, and it becomes a theme, then there's angst around it. If you're a third line left winger, they go get another third line left winger. When you're the goalie, it becomes a real problem. Health is a skill. You can't practice it, but health is a skill. And reliability is really critical in that position. You're going to say something.
Well, only because I want your opinion on this. And I'm sure you played with, maybe you were this guy back in the day. The word on Joe Woll is, and we heard Anthony Stolarz compare him to Sergei Bobrovsky the other day off the ice in terms of how hard he hits the gym, even on game days, the work that he puts in, right? And there are some who wonder, and nobody knows this other than Joe Woll, whether or not that takes a mental toll. Not the work, but you're putting in the work and you're working extra hard off the ice because of the fear of injury. You feel like you've got to get stronger, better condition, all of that stuff. And there's kind of this lingering sort of sentiment around Joe Woll that maybe he's got to tone it down a little bit and change his routine, at least on game days or on certain days where you need that maintenance.
Well, the first thought that popped into my mind is the player generally will always think they've got to do more. That not very often do you run into a guy that says, "Hey, you know what? I should do less." Like that doesn't generally happen.
No, not really.
The Leafs have the resources of every sports science and doctor and rehab guy and conditioning guy at their disposal. They should have, after Joe Woll didn't play in Game 7 in Boston last year, immediately the tact, I know there was discussion about it. I know there was about the way that he has these lower body issues and how do we help him become more reliable. They had all summer. That should be dialed in like to the last I to dot and the T to cross. And I'm sure in most cases it is. But when it becomes a theme, you have to change. It's fine if that's what Sergei Bobrovsky does. It's not fine if it doesn't work for you. If you can't get in the net in the first day of the season, it's an issue. Because what's going to happen when the games stack up? Maybe you might be better off because you don't have as much time for the gym. But this is a player that's in and out of the lineup. Really, you have to look at them like they're in. Sorry, just Ollie's eating something. Is you have to look at they're inconsistent. It's not their play; it's their appearances in the lineup. How can you be a consistent player if you're not in the lineup all the time? And so, whatever it is, they have to address it and build the program that fits for him. Because they were lucky. Stolarz played good last night, but there was a question around the Leaf crease, and there's certainly last night didn't do anything to solve it.
All right, why don't we wrap up headlines and just kind of pull two games together if you can. And of course you can. Rangers 6-0 over Pittsburgh. The Stars were engaged for the New York Rangers. And then Mikko Rantanen has a hat trick for the Colorado Avalanche. Well, that's not good enough because they lose 8-4 to Vegas. And that Vegas top line of Barbashev, Eichel, Mark Stone, man, they were lights out good. So, I mean, from an NHL perspective, again, you want your first week of the regular season to go like this when the Stars are shining.
Yeah, so much like we talked about at Vancouver, it's the goaltending without Demko, and Edmonton and is their defense, and both of those things popped up.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, it's will they be quick enough, fast enough, and get good enough goaltending? And last night they gave up the 6th spot at home, like that, like the Oilers. It's one thing to lose like that on the road, lose at home. It's a long night. So
And
that
Jerry
ugly,
made 35 saves.
right. So, but the concerns in Pittsburgh for one night came to the forefront.
Yeah.
And in Colorado, they're a thin lineup without whatever they're going to get from Landeskog, but they don't have Arturi Lehkonen, and Nichushkin, of course, is not in the lineup.
Yeah.
And then can they keep the puck out of the net? Well, they didn't last night. Vegas wants to roll here. They want to roll early, and that top line ran all over them. And so interesting. It's just one game, but when the concerns that you have before the game show up in the game, it's something to be noted in those places.
Right. And of course, now we're looking forward to some other clubs getting going. The Nashville Predators, man, they've added some stuff. That team, it looks like they're loaded to challenge. So we're going to find out the thoughts of Steven Stamkos coming up here on the Ray and Dregs podcast. Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons.
Tim's NHL trading cards, celebrating 10 years of unpacking the thrill.
5 packs of the new NHL trading cards, please.
10.
Make it 10, please.
With Tim's 10th edition NHL trading cards, it's hockey card season.
All right, our interviews on Ray and Dregs brought to us by Canadian Club. Classic 18-year-old high proof. Invite your senses to an elevated Canadian whiskey experience with Canadian Club. All right, how great is this, Ray? We've got Steven Stamkos, and this is going to sound strange for me to say it. Steven Stamkos of the Nashville Predators joining us here on the Ray and Dregs podcast. First of all, Stammer, thanks for doing this, but I guess you've had enough time, right? I mean, the announced signing was when it should be. It was on July 1st that you were signing in Nashville and leaving the Tampa Bay Lightning. But looking back, was it harder or was it easier than you expected, making that decision and ultimately moving your family from Florida to Nashville, Tennessee?
Well, when it's a decision at the time that never in my wildest dreams I would have ever thought I would have had to make, it's tough to say whether it's been easier or harder. But I will say this, the thing that once the decision was made, the thing I was probably stressing out the most about was the family aspect of it. You know, when you have 3 young kids, you know, you have your wife who, you know, has to take care of those kids when you're traveling and on the road. And when you're in one place for 16 years, you have all the answers. You have everything that you need. And when you're going somewhere new, that's the scary part. Now you're the one asking all the questions. And that transition has been light years ahead of what I ever thought or could have expected. And that's been the thing that has really eased my, you know, anxiety and nervousness about the move. Like the schools here are phenomenal. The people here, you talk about Southern hospitality, they're amazing. The guys, I knew it was a great group of guys. They've been, you know, above and beyond that. So I knew for me coming into a locker room, myself personally, that was easier than the family transition because, you know, you're around a bunch of hockey guys. They're all great guys. But the family thing I was a little nervous about, and it's been really amazing.
For those of us that, you know, watched you play your whole career to this point in Tampa, it was unfathomable that even when you went into last year, that something couldn't find a way to work itself out. At what point did you really think, oh boy, we might really be coming to an end here?
I mean, to be completely honest, July 1st. Wow. I mean, that looking back now and knowing what I know, and like you just mentioned, going back to the year, you know, prior, maybe I was a little naive to think that. But like I said, there's just so much more than just me that I'm thinking about in this situation. And that was the hardest part. I mean, like you said, as you get closer to that July 1st date, you just keep thinking, okay, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. There's no way this isn't going to work out. And then you get to July 1st and you're like, okay, it's real now. And now let's sit down and make, one of the biggest decisions we're going to have to make as a family in my hockey career anyway. So, but listen, like you mentioned, going back to last summer, I was probably a little naive to think that it was going to get done, and just how that whole situation unfolded was obviously disappointing. I shared that, but at the same time, what an experience it was for me to actually go through free agency and talk to some teams and just hear things, said about you that you haven't really heard in a long time. You've been in one place for 16 years. The comfort level is there from both sides. You know what to expect. You know what you're getting into every training camp. To have fresh, new conversations, different insights, meet and talk to different people. I took that experience and it was something that was really cool in the moment.
When you were making that decision, how much information can you gather in the conversations, whether it's with Barry Trotz or Andrew Brunette, the coach, and about, because it happened for us also suddenly, Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Shea and yourself. It's like, did you have a sense those guys were coming too, or you just kind of have to worry about you first and then move on?
Yeah, I think you try to worry about you first, but you definitely hear some rumblings, just as I'm sure, you guys do, of this guy's interested in this team, this guy's interested in that team. Brady and I have the same agency, so I kind of had a little inside information as to he was thinking about, if it didn't work out in Carolina, that Nashville was high up on his list, so I was familiar with that. The Marchessault thing, just completely out of left field. He called me, and that day, July 1st, I don't know if you guys have heard the story or not, but he called me, and I had just verbally given, Nashville the go-ahead that I was going to come and sign. I hadn't signed the contract yet, and I'm thinking he's calling me, pissed off that maybe I took his spot on. He wanted to go to Nashville, and it didn't work out, and he's asking me, did you just sign, with the Predators? And I was like, yeah, Marshy, I did. He's like, me too. And
wow,
that's when I found out. So I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing that they went out and obviously believed first and foremost with the core group that they have there in Nashville and how they built off last season, to go out and get the guys that they did, that they think we can be, a contending team. And that was exciting.
yeah.
Have you played Shea on the golf course? You guys must have played, right? He's good too.
We had a little team outing. Funny story. We did kind of like a Ryder Cup style, was Canada versus the world.
Oh,
and he's a scratch. I mean, he's an unbelievable golfer. It was really him and Gus Nyquist. Gus is like a +1 or 2 or something, but those two are on the same team, and I was kind of one of the lower handicap guys on Canada, and we played against Shazy in the first 9-hole match, and we actually skunked them.
Oh, wow.
Carrying it and I are, we're riding high after 9 holes. And maybe Shazy was a little nervous. I don't know. In the back 9, they skunked us. So we ended up tied. So that was a win for our group because we were playing against a pretty good golfer.
No, speaking of international play. Maybe it's a bit early for this, but the Four Nations is just around the corner. I mean, that's later this season. Then beyond that, internationally, we're looking at the Olympics. Player of your stature, I mean, it seems pretty obvious you're going to be involved, at least to guys like us. Do you think of that in any way, shape, or form? Like, are you thinking, as you block out the year that is in Nashville and everything that you've got to face, are you thinking about any of the international stuff at this stage?
Maybe my answer would have been different if it wasn't for the whirlwind summer that we just had, but it really has not been on my mind at all. It's like I said, it was a lot. I mean, things happen fast. Yeah. You sign July 1st. You got to come down here and do some media stuff. You got to get your kids situated in school. I mean, school starts mid-August down here, so you got to find a place to live pretty quick, get them situated. So it's been a lot. We were down in Tampa for a week this summer, just packing the house up and everything. So I haven't thought much about it, to be honest. I know, anytime you get into international play and best on best, I mean, you want to be part of that. So that's certainly something I would love to be part of, whether it works out or not. We'll see how the beginning of the year goes, but it was certainly something that I used as motivation, last Olympics and coming in and maybe, having to really have a good, year to earn a spot on that team, which I did. And who knows what could have been, but as you get older, you realize your chances, become less and less, and this may very well be the last time you get a chance. So if you can have a good start to the year and put yourself in a position, that's certainly what I want to do.
Have you walked by a mirror yet when you're going out for a game or something and looked at yourself and go, like, how different that looks? I mean, the color is a lot different.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going from one shade of blue to another or white. I mean, you're going pretty bold with the gold. And I found that out pretty quick that you don't call it yellow down here. You call it gold.
It's gold. So, okay.
Yeah. So just if you're in Nashville, make sure you don't say that. But, it's different. I mean, listen, anytime I even playing a couple exhibition games and seeing some pictures from those games, it's certainly, an adjustment for sure, but that's kind of the least of my worries right now. Right. You're coming into a new organization and new coaching staff and new systems and things like that. So you're just trying to get acclimated as a player. And like I said, I thought that would be the easier part than getting the family settled in, but the family stuff has been great, and now it's me just trying to feel comfortable on the ice and in some different situations and scenarios. And, the coaching staff has been great in working with me, on that. And it'll be a little bit of a work in progress, but the guys, like I said, the guys that's here are great. The leadership group is outstanding. And, the training camp was really hard. And that was something that, you could tell that they just wanted to pick up where they left off last year and going through that run. And then, having a really tough, first round series against Vancouver. The guys are hungry, and that's a group that you certainly want to be part of.
When I'm curious if this is at all a case for you. When I moved to a new team, one of the toughest parts, aside from figuring out the system, was the terminology the coaches use. Now, you've had Coop for forever, and he says the same words in the same way, I'm sure, all the time. And then Andrew Brunette, I'm positive, has different way of saying it. Does it feel odd to hear the different terms and the way it's really the same stuff, but the way it comes across?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, everything is I mean, that's the only word you can really use. It's just different. And that's something for me that's been one of the biggest, adjustments. You're in Tampa, you're there 16 years, you're the captain. Everyone's coming to me, if they have a question or concern. I'm the one giving the answers usually. Now I'm the one asking all the questions. So that's been an adjustment for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's a different system here in entirely in terms of the D zone and neutral zone. And that's the part as a hockey player, as an athlete, you want to play, free and instinctual. And that's when you're at your best. And now there's some things that are different where, thankfully for the exhibition games and the training camps and the scrimmages where, you're on your heels a little bit thinking about what you have to do before you do it. And you try to knock that stuff out as soon as you can, but there might be a little adjustment period. But at the end of the day, Andrew Brunette is a great communicator, and he's come to the new guys and said, listen, don't be afraid to make little mistakes. Like, just be aggressive. Just go play your game, go get the puck. Like, we'll figure the system stuff out as we go. Because I know even talking to some of the guys last year, it took them a while to get, that new system that he brought in. So, we're trying to learn that as quick as possible, but certainly, the lingo, the way practices are run, for me being pretty routine oriented, coming to the rink, especially on game days, like that's just out the window. And trying to find that new normal too. So it's been an adjustment. It's different for sure, but at the end of the day, like you said, I mean, you go out there and you play hockey, no matter what jersey you're wearing. Usually, you figure it out.
Have you looked at all at October 28th, or is there too many games between here and there?
Well, I've talked a lot about it to people
Yeah.
when they mention it, for sure. I mean, listen, you're not going to avoid that. With that game coming up, especially with how quick it happens,
Mhm.
I think I'd probably rather have it that way to go down there and do it, and then kind of focus. I know it's going to be a pretty emotional one, but it's hard for me to get to that state of mind without actually physically being there. So I think that's been easier for me to kind of just not focus on it as much. So it's going to come quick, but as of right now, like I said, I've had a lot of stuff to deal with, and I haven't really focused too much on that one.
Last one for me here, Steven. Look, I mean, when Matt Duchene was there, we know he was a big country music fan, didn't mind getting up on stage and doing that. Ryan O'Reilly has about 250 guitars. So the whole Nashville scene kind of fits his sort of want away from the rink. What about you? Are you a country music fan? Have you taken up any of the spots in Broadway, or have you been in the music scene at all in Nashville?
I'm probably the polar opposite of those two when it comes to music. So
Yeah.
I'm the guy that drives in his car in silence. That's me. So the music scene, I mean, my wife enjoys country music. Not that I don't enjoy country music. I just I'd rather just be out with, guys on the team and their wives and enjoying, a good time. And if there happens to be some good music, it's great. But we did a Dierks Bentley concert as a team when we first got down here, and we got to go up on stage, and that was cool. But you feel how different it is when you're on Broadway. I mean, it's electric down there. And, we all live kind of 15, 20 minutes away from Broadway, and you feel like you're on a different planet. Like, you're in these big wooded areas, and deer running across the street, and then you're 10, 15 minutes, away. You got the madness of Broadway, and you're driving in for a game, and it's absolutely crazy. So I think that aspect is really cool. Just being able to get away from that, but then come in that atmosphere for games and just feel that. As a visiting player, you always enjoyed coming to Nashville and playing, and obviously partaking in Broadway a little bit, and then feeling that atmosphere in the stand. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
It's good
Awesome.
stuff.
We got to let you go. Hey, Stammer, all the best. Hey, thank you for taking the time. And I can't even imagine what a big change this is, so long in Tampa to Nashville. But all the best to you, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Stammer. All right, typical there, Ray, of Steven Stamkos, man. He speaks the truth. You go back to the summer before his final year in Tampa Bay, where he touched on it a bit here in the interview with us on Ray and Dregs, his disappointment that the Lightning weren't more interested in having negotiations at that point, and then just bluntly states he didn't know he was leaving Tampa Bay until July 1st. I mean, put yourself in his shoes as that level of player going through all of that. You went through contract negotiations and stalemates and all of that. That's got to be a tough one when you've got a young family.
It is. What's really consistent around the league, and really probably through all sports, is the time that you don't need stability is when you're 20, 21, 22, 23. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. You don't have family. You probably don't have a wife yet. You don't have kids. You're not worried about schools, and it's easy. But you're full of promise. And as you get older, you're not. And you got family, and you'd like to be in one place. Sports just doesn't work like that. And I've talked to a couple of players in the first day and a half of the season that I ran into, and they've moved on to new teams, and their families are staying behind, and they're going to make do. And that happens all the time, and it sucks. And that's the other side of what pro sports are about. So For Stamkos, I like that he said, he's probably a little naive and that, hey, it'll all work out. We're going to get it done. And then it's like a slap in the face. And I don't know that he meant that he felt disrespected, but it's like a slap in the face. Like, hey, you got to move on here.
Yeah.
You got to start talking to other teams. You got to start processing this stuff. And it always felt like it would get done, and then it didn't. I love the story about Jonathan Marchessault. Loved it. that he had no idea, and that they both ended up there. And the other thing that I thought was pretty cool, which I'd never really thought of, was he said, he had some people saying some things about him that he hadn't heard in a long time.
Yeah, nice.
And that's
things.
because, everybody's telling you how good you are and how much they want you. And the way I would sum that up is that when you're with a place for a long time, even someone like Stamkos, is that team inevitably starts to see what you're not. And the teams that are interested in acquiring you, they see what you are.
Right.
And it is a massive difference. Massive difference. And so now he's in Nashville, and I'm sure he looks at himself and goes, man, I'm in this gold. And that's really strange. I hope his dad got the itinerary, because you always see his dad around the rink with the grandkids, and he's going to be in the wrong place if he's been going to Tampa for 16 years. So it is a really really interesting story.
It is,
and it's not like he got 11 goals last year. He had 40. So that it's not like Nashville's picking up somebody that's on the downslide. And can he be a 30, 35 goal guy? Yeah, you bet he can. And it will be really interesting to watch him. It'll be strange to watch him in that jersey, though.
Well, thanks to Steven Stamkos and by extension to the Nashville Predators for making that work. I mean, it's probably one of the last things Stammer wanted to do was yet another interview, even though we're two very likable guys here on the podcast. I mean, maybe it was just priorities.
Well, I mean, that's up for debate.
Yeah.
But we appreciate it. And when you get somebody that's old enough and thoughtful enough and honest enough to do an interview like that, that was a great interview. It really was.
And kudos to you. Planes, trains, and automobiles for Ray Ferraro this week. And then now you're going to drift a little bit, I think, into routine, right? So after this week, it gets, I mean, you're still humping it out there, but it's more routine and more what you're used to.
Yeah, today's a pretty easy day. There's going to be very little accomplished today, I think. And, my reading that I do that usually takes me about 90 minutes might take me about 4 hours. I know I'm going to have a focus issue. I just know it. And
a couple of naps along the way.
Oh, 1:30 has got nap written all over it. And then tomorrow, which is Friday, the Flyers will be in Vancouver for their season opener, and look forward to seeing Torts. He's always entertaining. And then see how the Canucks rebound. And so for me, I got a day off. You got to get into Studio 6 and right the Leaf ship, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just you remind me of Torts. We'll wrap up with a quick story. It doesn't happen very often. It's probably happened 4 or 5 times in the last decade, but particularly if it's on the podcast or if it's on TSN and I say something about Tortorella or the Flyers or whatever, right? I'll get a text from him just randomly and he'll go, why don't you F off or something like that, like something to that point. And he'll go, hope your family is well, Driggs. Good. I look forward to chatting with you.
I'm going to say this. I have never met a person with 2 completely different sides, because he is one of the most caring, thoughtful, selfless people. And then when he walks through the door of the rink, it's just like completely different. Drake, you must, I know you were there, Torts' first day on TV at TSN. So we're doing a season preview. I'm sitting next to James. Torts is next to me. And we're talking about Ottawa. and we're going through the 7 Canadian teams, and he brings up Ottawa and Jason Spezza, and I said, well, Spezza's different than other players. You got to give him a little bit of leeway to make a mistake, to turn a puck over, because he can do things that other people can't do. And I just say can't do, and we're like, Ottawa was like team 2, so we're in the first 20 minutes. And I go, like, that other guys can't do. And Torts goes, bullshit. And,
That's right.
And James, as he's brilliant, he turns, he looks
Yeah.
at the clock that's up on the wall there, and he goes, 18 minutes. He's like, I win the pool first time. And Torch immediately, he's like, I promised my wife I wouldn't swear on TV. But he didn't even get through the first segment. It was awesome. It was so good.
All right, he's on the list. We've got to have him back on Rain.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, buddy. Well, get through tomorrow night's game, Friday night's game, and then recharge on the weekend.
Yeah, you bet. Dregs, have a good one tonight in the studio. Say hey to the guys, and everybody, thanks for listening, and thanks again to Steven Stamkos.
Yes, and thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Rain Dregs and make the pod possible. To our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, to Tim Hortons, thank you. And thank you for listening, everybody. Stay safe.